What if the tension you feel in your body and in your thoughts, in your emotions, isn't something to get rid of, but something trying to guide you? Welcome to Healing Beyond the Symptoms, the podcast that helps people discover the root causes of their health struggles and take back control with science, strategy, and self-awareness. I'm Dr. Leah Hahn, a chiropractor and functional wellness doctor who believes that true healing starts beneath the surface. So let's dive in. This is a space where we move beyond just managing symptoms and begin to understand what they're actually trying to tell us. And today we're talking about tension, that tightness in your chest, the clenched jaw, the racing thoughts, the emotional overwhelm. So often we experience these things as problems, as something to fix, to quiet, to push through. But what if tension is actually a signal that something in your life is no longer aligned, a signal that something within you is asking for change, a signal that something in your life or a way you're showing up is not authentic to who you really are. Let's start by redefining tension. From a nervous system perspective, tension is activation, energy that has been mobilized without resolution. Your system is constantly scanning for safety, for truth, for congruency. And when something is off, when you're overriding your own needs, staying in something that doesn't feel right, or disconnecting from your own internal signals, your body responds, not to punish you, but to get your attention. That response can look like tight muscles, fatigue, digestive issues, racing thoughts, or emotional overwhelm. These aren't random. They're your own system saying something here needs to shift. Tension tends to build across three layers: the body, the thoughts, and the emotions. The body holds through sensation. This can look like tightness, bracing, constriction. The mind holds through looping, overthinking, trying to control. The emotions hold through suppression, irritability, or numbness. And when these layers reinforce each other, the tension becomes louder, not because your system is failing, but because it's trying harder to be heard. At its core, tension often reflects incongruency, a gap between what you feel and how you live, between your internal truth and your external reality. And many people try to resolve tension without addressing that gap. They try to relax without changing what's creating the pressure. But tension is often asking, where am I out of alignment? What am I tolerating that doesn't feel true? What am I holding that isn't mine to carry? I want to bring this into something more tangible. A client I worked with came in with chronic neck and shoulder pain. She had done all the right things. She had done chiropractic care, massage, she had tried therapy, stretching, but the tension kept returning. And when she started network spinal analysis care, we started a process of unwinding the tension. The more her body moved into a state of safety, she found her body and mind becoming calmer. Instead of feeling reactive and defensive, she was able to be curious about the patterns in her life. And with that curiosity, she was able to see her patterning and her conditioning. She was the one everyone relied on. At work, she overextended. At home, she held everything together. She did all the planning, all the coordinating. Emotionally, she rarely expressed when she was overwhelmed. There was a constant state of holding and bracing, and her body mirrored that. With NSA care, her body started to shift and change. She found peace in her body, a new level of flexibility and balance. With this came new realizations about how she might start to live more authentically, in a way that honored her needs and her boundaries. As she began to experiment with small shifts, saying no in low-stakes situations, asking for help, allowing herself to not carry everything, her body began to respond at a whole new level. Not instantly, but steadily. The tension released, because the pattern beneath it was actually changing. She now can use a sense of emerging tension as a signal to take a closer look. What is working and not working in her life? And how can she continue to make choices that help her live with congruency and authenticity. There's another story that feels important to share. This client didn't come in for physical pain. She came in because she felt anxious all of the time, but not anxious in a clear, identifiable way. It was more like a constant internal pressure, a tightness in her chest she couldn't fully explain, racing thoughts at night, a sense that she could never fully relax, even when things were, quote, fine. On the surface, her life looked stable, a long-term relationship, a solid career, everything that should have felt secure. But as we slowed things down and began to track what was happening in her body, something started to come into focus. Every time she talked about her relationship, her breath would shorten, her chest would tighten, her shoulders would raise, her words would become more careful and more managed. There was tension not just in her body, but in how she was expressing herself. And what eventually emerged was something she hadn't fully allowed herself to name. She didn't feel like herself in the relationship anymore. There wasn't a dramatic rupture. There was no clear reason to leave, but there was a quiet, persistent misalignment. And her system had been holding that for a long time. The anxiety wasn't random. It was the accumulation of unspoken truth. As her body found safety, it became easier to be herself, to let go of the bracing. She started journaling, meditating, taking time to go on short walks over her lunch break. When we got to the point of rewiring her nervous system, she began to gently acknowledge her truth, not rushing to make a decision, but allowing herself to feel what was true. And something deeply shifted. Her anxiety didn't disappear overnight, but the intensity softened. Because she was no longer fighting against her own knowing, eventually she made changes in her life that reflected that truth. And what's important here isn't the specific outcome. It's that her system no longer had to carry the tension. So how do you begin to work with tension in this way? It starts with slowing down. The next time you feel tension, instead of immediately trying to fix it, see if you can pause. Notice, where is this showing up in my body? What has been on my mind? What feels unexpressed or unresolved? Is there anything I can acknowledge that I once ignored or pushed down? And then gently ask, what might this be asking for? Not from urgency, but from curiosity. Because when you listen, the signal becomes clear. Tension is not the problem. It's communication from your body, from your nervous system, from the parts of you that are always orienting toward truth. And when you began to listen, you don't just reduce symptoms, you began to change the life that created them. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope that wherever you are in your journey, regulating, working on rewiring with NSA, or realizing that you may need support to begin the journey of rewiring, I'm hoping you leave this episode with just a little more kindness toward yourself than what you came in with. You are evolving, you are moving forward, and you are exactly where you should be. All is well. If you're ready to explore what deeper nervous system support could look like for you, I'd love to connect. You can book a wellness consultation at bodyandbalancechiropractic.com, and we'll look at what your body actually needs to heal at whatever pace is right for you. If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who is ready to take their healing to a new level. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a review for the podcast. Your reviews help more people discover these conversations about healing, nervous system health, and living beyond the symptoms. Thank you for being a part of this community. And this week, when you notice tension arise, see if you can meet it, not as something to push away, but as something that might be guiding you towards change. Thanks again for joining me today on Healing Beyond the Symptoms. If you've been curious about network spinal, or if you've tried everything else and still feel stuck, I want you to know this. Your body is not broken. It's patterned, and those patterns can change. If you're ready to experience how gentle care can lead to profound transformation, I'd love to invite you to book a wellness consultation at bodyandbalancechiropractic.com. Together, we'll look at what your body needs to finally release, reset, and thrive. Until next time, breathe deep, trust your body, and remember, Gentle can be powerful.